It's not what I consider due process. It's what the Constitution defines as due process.
I just want to point back to how you said, oh, well, I pretty much just look American. I sound American. Therefore, I am American.
Do you think masked individuals who do not identify themselves should be permitted to abduct people and take them to holding facilities? Yes or no?
Sometimes.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching. Most of the content on my channel is supported by generous patrons, but made available for free to the entire world. If you support that, please consider adding your support at patreon.com/atheistdebates. This clip, however, is from one of the many programs that I do on YouTube on The Line. And if you liked it, feel free to visit, like, subscribe, and watch The Line Network live. Thank you. I tell you, we've got a call right now, if you're ready.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Because Tim is calling from New York, and he wants to talk about why he supports Trump, specifically immigration laws. Tim, why don't you believe in due process?
I wouldn't say that I don't believe in due process.
I would.
However, I think that it's important that our country enforces its immigration laws. And I don't think it's fair to taxpayers that we should have to pay the bill for illegal migrants.
Okay. So first of all, you don't, and you don't know what you're talking about. But what's actually happening here is there is no due process. They are deporting people with no criminal records. They're deporting people with no due process. They're going to Home Depot and rounding up workers while they said we're going to get the criminals, the bad people out. That's not who they're going after, and that's not what's happening. How can you still support this? Now, at least they've said that since this incident in Tennessee, they're going to stop rounding up as many pregnant immigrants so they don't keep having embarrassing miscarriages in the facilities. But why are you okay with them running around, rounding up people without showing who they are, who's arresting them, what the charge is, any concern of their immigration status, and the information that we get from those who are monitoring this show that most of them have no criminal record at all, and we're not even sure who some of them are. Why are you okay with that?
Well, I'd like to ask, what is your alternative given the fact that we have tens of millions of illegal immigrants?
You don't get to ask my alternative. I'm asking you why you're okay with it. Because even if I didn't have an alternative, which I do, the previous policies were not working, but there were changes. You're saying that you're okay with and support the dumbest, least honest, 34-time felon, 2-time impeached, batshit crazy president who puts people who are not qualified in every possible position of power, violates and tears up a nuclear agreement with Iran, sides with dictators, and then bombs Iran while sending Proud Boys out pretending to be ICE agents in masks to round up immigrants. Also, you don't have to pay for something that you're probably not paying for anyway, and you don't care if they get due process. Why is that? How do we know?
I think that we need to deport. We need to deport a lot of people.
Tim, how do you know? Like, if they come and grab you right now, what do you think will happen to you?
I mean, I'm going to show them my birth certificate.
Do you have your birth certificate on you? And by the way, you know they're ending.
I do.
You know they're ending birthright citizenship, right?
I mean, that hasn't gone into that. That hasn't even been legislated or.
Yeah, not yet.
It's not an issue in the Supreme Court currently.
Yeah.
It's been talked about.
Well, Tim, I'm kind of curious. Now, what Matt laid out is something that really happens currently right now. The ICE agents show up and they just take people off the street. You don't have, like, unless you're carrying around your birth certificate in your back pocket, you're not going to get a chance to, like, show it to them for them to just totally disregard whatever you're saying and arrest you anyways. So my first question is, do you know what due process is? Because I find that in this conversation, a lot of people that are for this, for the mass deportation of individuals, they don't know what due process is. Can you tell me basically what it is?
Well, it differs. It differs based on whether it's a civil or a criminal infraction.
No.
I mean, basically, okay. Well, you know what? You explain it to me.
Well, due process is where you get to speak to a lawyer and you have a trial in order to assess whether or not you have even committed a crime. This is to prevent the government from just snatching people up and doing whatever they want with them, putting them in jail for umpteen years or whatever, or in this particular case, deporting them to an El Salvadorian hellhole. So, like, that's what due process is. So,
and by the Constitution, sorry, John, by the Constitution. You don't have to be a citizen to get due process. Everybody gets due process. This is the basic groundwork of the rule of law. Please continue, John. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, in Matt's example here of like, what would you do? You said I would show them my birth certificate. That in the very case that we're trying to argue about right now, you don't get to have that option. So you're literally yanked off the street. You're summarily decided like this is some kind of bad Judge Dredd comic that the ICE agents are judge, jury, and essentially executioner at this point, and they get to ship you off to El Salvador. So at what point in that is there due process, and when would you be able to show your birth certificate so that you can prove your citizenship?
Yep.
Well, I don't know if I totally believe you guys when you're saying there's not a process, because even Kilmar Abrego, who you guys bring up so much. I mean, liberals tend to bring up so much. I mean, they went through this whole thing about there was documentation.
But Tim, did Kilmar?
All these other people aren't getting anything.
Tim, before Kilmar got deported to the El Salvadorian hellhole, did he have a hearing to determine whether or not he should be deported?
There were administrative.
That's not a hearing, Tim. Tim, we're really trying to help you here. So first of all, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is the prime example because he actually had a court order that dictated he could not be deported to El Salvador. Even if he was wound up being deported, they would have to deport him somewhere else. He was picked up and deported to El Salvador. Multiple courts, right up to the Supreme Court of the United States, determined that he did not have due process. There was no hearing, and there was nothing charging him with a crime and no process at all. And so when they finally got around to bringing him back, they put charges on him in Tennessee. And if you go look at the facts of this, he was driving someone from point A to point B, and they're accusing him of trafficking. That's fine. It seems to be bullshit given the evidence we've seen, but it's okay to charge him with that crime and then prosecute him for that crime and then potentially deport him if he's found guilty. But none of that happened the first time, and none of this happened with almost anybody else. You are saying it's more important that we get people out of the country, even if we don't know who they are, whether they're here legally, which has happened, whether or not they are in the process, nothing. Who do you, like John was asking you, who do you think you show your birth certificate to? And why would it matter?
Why would it matter? I have to ask you guys a question. How
you have to answer these questions.
Illegal immigrants.
Tim, no, you're not going to sit here and quiz me when you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about with regard to due process. You said that you had a solution if they came and picked you up, which is to show your birth certificate. Now, most people don't have their birth certificates. I don't have mine. I'm a citizen by birth, and I'm an 8-year fucking veteran of the Navy. I can show them my driver's license, but if they don't ask and they just scoop me up and deport me, then I don't get to do anything. Your birth certificate isn't worth the paper you printed it out on without due process. If there's no due process, your paperwork is irrelevant. How do you fix that?
How do I fix that? Well, you think that if you sat there and told them, I grew up here, you speak, I mean, obviously you speak with a plainly American accent.
Are you really going down this racist piece of shit line where you think that you can detect who's here? It is fucking racist, and you think you can detect who's here legally and who's not based on how good they speak English. Well, let's put you to a test, Tim. You want to go take an English test and see where you come out? I bet money, Tim.
You're asking me.
I bet money, Tim. That you don't have any English training beyond high school. I'd bet serious money on that.
Oh, okay. Well, you lose the bet. Anyway.
Okay, prove it. What English training? What English training do you have beyond high school?
I have a bachelor's degree.
In English?
English?
No, but I took English classes.
Oh.
Wait.
Well,
so, like,
what English training do you have? Do you have a college degree?
Not at all.
You don't.
Not at all. And yet I know way more about all of this shit than you do. Like, I bet you there's very few subjects outside of working expertise that I don't know more about than you, despite the fact that I don't have any advanced degrees. You didn't even know what due process was. You don't know how you could show that you're a citizen. You don't understand that without due process, it doesn't matter if you're a citizen, and that's the problem. You should be embarrassed being this uninformed and proudly calling in to defend.
Can you tell me
people when you have no way of knowing who's
handle 50 million illegal immigrants?
Try and talk over me all you want. It's never, ever going to fucking work for you, Tim. I'm still in Zen mode. You can't rattle me because you don't understand what the fuck you're talking about. So answer my question.
Well, how do we afford?
Answer my question. Answer my question, Tim. Which is, who do you think you show your birth certificate to when they come and throw you in a van and take you away?
Well, obviously, you're telling me that you don't think I can do that. So it's a rhetorical question.
Well, congratulations, Tim. Rhetorical. That's a good SAT word there. Why didn't you think of that before you tried to say that you would just show them your fucking birth certificate? Which I also don't believe you carry around with you.
Okay. I'd have my license.
So do I. So did some of the people who got picked up.
Yeah,
I would tell them it's filed at a certain city hall where my birth certificate is filed. Did they tell them that?
And what do you think they're going to do, Tim? If they're not going to follow due process, they don't give a fuck where your birth certificate is. They're not required to go demonstrate that you're even who they say you are.
If you believe the most extreme and egregious cases are the norm, which I don't.
No, Tim. I'm not talking about any cases, extreme, egregious, or otherwise. I'm talking about what due process means and the fact that it has been thrown out the window. It is no longer required, and you don't get to say, "Oh, I get due process," when you're denying due process to others.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain how we can reasonably give due process in your vision of it to 50 or to tens of millions of illegal immigrants at once?
No, you can't do it at once. How dare you set up a ridiculous scenario? Can you explain how I can flap my wings and fly? Why do you add an at-once restriction on there? You want 47 million immigrants to get out of the country right now, you fucking bigot?
Yes. Not because of their race, but because they're here illegally. I don't care if they're white.
You don't know that they're here legally, Tim. There are 47 million immigrants representing about 14% of the population at last check. And most of them are here legally. And then most of them get here on visas and then overstay the visas. They're not sneaking in with drugs and 25 pregnant women so that they can get their birthright citizenship. They are overstaying visas is the primary way they get here. And you want to round up 47 million of them right now when they are the people who are working to make your life better, paying taxes, contributing to the system. What do you do? When did you serve?
The House Budgetary Committee.
If I can push back, I want you to answer, but I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Matt can correct me on this, because I feel like, you said that you want to deport, all the undocumented peoples from America. That has a number of different issues. For one, the labor market impact, economic growth and GDP impacts to it, tax revenue impacts and everything. So we could go into that if we really wanted to. But the thing that I wanted to focus on was, I do think though that your motivations for this are a bit racist, even if you don't, in the front of your mind know that you're being a bit racist about it. And to prove my point, I just want to point back to how you said, "Oh, well, I pretty much just look American, I sound American, therefore I am American." And for anybody that doesn't sound what you think is American or look like what you think is American, apparently the ICE picking them up and illegally detaining them and deporting them, you would consider that to be an okay thing, or are you saying that you support due process for all of them, for everybody that's rounded up and that doesn't sound, act, or look exactly like you?
I don't know that due process has as much of a precise term as you guys might think that it does.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, this is defined in legal, this is defined in the Constitution.
Yeah, it's in the 14th. It's in the 14th Amendment, Tim. You should be embarrassed for being willing to look this stupid publicly. Like, no slight. I mean, it's one thing to not know something, but when we explain to you what's going on and how this is defined in the 14th fucking Amendment, and then you try to say, well, I don't think it's as clearly defined as you are. I no longer believe that you're an honest interlocutor. I think you're just a troll prank calling to try to stir up stuff. I don't believe you're genuinely as stupid as you are.
Can you ask me why I think what I think? So could we, let's say, could we move beyond due process? Can I ask you other questions? Why? Let's say you thought I didn't support due process. No, Tim, you can't move beyond due process. You can't move beyond due process, because without due process, nothing else matters.
Tim, would you agree that all supposed undocumented peoples that are being rounded up and deported should receive full due process to determine whether or not they should be deported?
You'd have to more specifically explain what you mean, and you mean see an attorney.
It's really easy, Tim.
But it's
really easy. It's really easy, Tim. I'm going to line up 10 people in front of you who, according to you, don't look American. How do you tell which of those 10 is here illegally and deport them versus which ones are here legally and get to stay? What is your process for that?
Well, at the very start of it, wouldn't you be able to explain the things that you went through to become an American citizen?
Tim, who do you get to explain it to without the process? What is your process there are 10 people in front of you. 5 of them should get the fuck out, according to you, and 5 of them should stay, according to you. I want to know, what is your process for telling those 2 groups apart?
I just told you. You would be able to explain how you became an American.
Tim, do you not think that is called due process? When you actually ask someone to demonstrate that they are who they say they are, and they then provide the answer, and then you verify that answer by some due process? And
for plenty of them, the answer is no, they're not here legally, and you still want them to stay.
Tim, I'm done. I'm going to let John continue to talk to you. I want John to continue to talk to you. I'm maintaining my zen, because you are either the most dishonest troll bigot piece of shit I've talked to in months, or you are so clueless and you are so entrenched in this that I don't think I can be helpful, because you seem to want due process, but only for some, and only if you can. It's like, oh, I can tell you what I did to become a citizen. Do you not think that there are people here illegally who couldn't say, oh yeah, I became a citizen, I went and took this test, it's down there at City Hall? And then the next step would be to go see if that's true. That's fucking called due process, you dolt. John, I give up.
Okay, so Tim, as far as immigrants go, as far as undocumented peoples go, just so you know where I stand on the idea of deporting those that have been proven to be, criminals or have criminal activity or something like that, or they participate in criminal activity here or whatnot. Of course, that requires due process in order to determine that. You don't just get to size somebody up just by the sight of them and determine whether or not they are criminals. Also, if you're going to go the route of saying that, well, all quote unquote illegal immigrants are criminals because they have broken the law or something like that, it seems to me like you would want to make that, kind of case for just all criminals. Maybe I don't know, but I think that the due process thing is pretty important for determining who should be and who shouldn't be deported. So it's not that I and I'm not going to speak for Matt, but I don't think that all undocumented persons should be deported. I think that there's a small subset that should be, but we still have to go through due process in order to determine that.
Okay, well, can I respond to your, claims that they're helpful to the economy? I don't think that that's true. I think they cost Americans billions of dollars. And there was a study by the House Committee on the Budget.
Fine. We'll go down this route since you don't want to, since you would rather wipe your ass with the Constitution and not provide all peoples inside the United States with due process. We could just admit that you don't care about the Constitution, but we could talk about numbers if you wanted to. I'm an engineer, so I love numbers. How much in taxes have undocumented immigrants contributed? Usually annually.
Well, they pay billions in income tax, but they don't pay a lot of other taxes.
$11 billion in taxes annually, which is not, I don't know what you mean by that, because it's $11 billion in taxes, both federal and state and city taxes. So it's like taxes at all levels. They contribute $11 billion to it. What do you think? Where do you think they're being a drain on the American economy?
Well, here we go. Using the National Academy's estimate of immigrants' net fiscal impact by education level, we estimate that the lifetime fiscal drain for each illegal immigrant is about $68,000. Although this estimate comes with some caveats, so I don't know every detail, but that's what they estimate.
Some caveats. Oh, that's college level English right there. Caveats.
Okay,
you're a bad motherfucker there. He's got some caveats for you.
So I can, but at the end of the day, it's $68,000 net drain per illegal immigrant, including the taxes they pay.
And where? So you're just saying that.
I can read some specifics.
Yeah. If you can give me specifics, like what specifically are the undocumented people's like getting? Because like undocumented people can't like get tax returns or returns on their taxes or anything like that. They essentially work and they pay into the system, and they're unable to get any kind of money out of the system. Undocumented people usually can't like get Medicaid or anything like that. And there's a lot of different ways in which they do pay taxes, like state and city taxes are paid whenever they purchase items. And then federal taxes, some undocumented people, what they'll do is they'll get like a business. They'll start a business, which it's actually one of the largest. Let's see. According to my research here, many undocumented immigrants are business owners who create jobs and contribute to the economy. They create businesses. They use the 10 for the business in order to pay their taxes. So, please go ahead.
Well, here we go. In addition to consuming welfare, illegal immigration makes significant use of public education. It's estimated that illegal immigrants in public schools created $68.1 billion in costs in 2019, which is more than they pay into in federal income tax, more than they pay into in Social Security and Medicaid, more than they pay into it with income tax, I believe.
Should we do the math on how much Tim contributes and uses?
I mean, that? Tim, undocumented persons also use roads. Are you going to like somehow figure up a monetary value for that and also attribute that to them? Like, I get it. Undocumented kids go to school and you really fucking hate it when undocumented little Mexicans go to school. I get it.
Well,
I like how you didn't
they ran
deny
the numbers.
that.
The numbers altogether say that there's a fiscal drain on the tax base. How is that fair to American people?
Prove you're an American person and I'll answer.
So you don't have an answer and you want to debate the question.
So you're dishonest fuck who lies when I said I would give you a fucking answer if you could prove you were an American person. Mm-hmm. You want to pretend that I don't have an answer. Wow, how convenient.
Are you still there?
Yeah, we're here. I'm wondering, where did you say that you're getting this information from that you're reading off of your script there?
I'm reading this from hold on a second, the House Budgetary Committee, I believe. This is a title.
Journal of
The Impact of Illegal Immigration on Social Services by the Director of Research for the Center of Immigration Studies.
You're a great researcher.
Thank you, sir.
The Center for Immigration Studies, I feel like, let's see. They claim to be independent, nonpartisan, founded in 1985. I'm not sure. I remember hearing about this Center for Immigration Studies. They claim to be nonpartisan, but I feel like they're not. Hold on. Sorry. You're reading off of a script, and I haven't researched this particular script before, so it's going to take me just one quick second.
I'm wondering, though, even if they were all terrible criminals who were leeching off the society, so that,
I don't think they are.
I'm sorry, I don't know why you're even speaking, Tim. You should really stop talking until I'm done. I guarantee you that. But I'm wondering, because, if you throw me off my track, it's just going to bust my zen, and we don't want to do that. So even if they were all here illegally and leeching off the system, I still don't know how you tell them from somebody else. I still don't know why you're willing to violate their constitutional rights. And you have no way of showing whose constitutional rights you're defending. But also, Tim doesn't know anything about this. He's done some chat GPT and some web search and found some stuff that he's a bigot. And so he's looking for information that supports his bigotry. And he's willing to throw everything else out, including World War III, because he doesn't like that there are some people here illegally, possibly contributing more to society than he is.
Yeah. This is a societal issue, not an individual issue.
Okay. Well, hold on. Okay. So I'm doing. Yeah. So I'm doing some reading on this. Okay. I've got a couple of things pulled up here. First of all, the Center for Immigration Studies is considered broadly, broadly considered a right-wing anti-immigration think tank. Even though it disputes this label, but it's very obvious in the information that it puts out, it's very anti-immigration and is very decidedly right-wing. The Southern Poverty Law Center designates this group as a hate group due to its ties to nativism, its founders' white nationalist associations, and a history of promoting or amplifying racist and misleading anti-immigrant narratives. So that's for one. For two, moving on to the numbers, just because I crunched this little search query out here in just a second. But like on a net annual cost, the actual cost, and that's if you include the amount of taxes that undocumented immigrants actually pay into the system, on a yearly basis, the cost to the American taxpayer is $957. That's it. That amount roughly translates to about a little bit less than 9,000 per undocumented immigrant per year. Now that's per year. The $68,000 number that you mentioned is actually over their entire lifetime. So over a lifetime, one analysis suggests the average undocumented immigrant imposes a physical drain of $68,000. So that's over their entire life. So basically, for their entire life, you would have to figure up the $11 billion, right, that they contribute in taxes federally each year, and then you would have to total all of that up and then do the numbers on that. So, I mean, yeah, I feel like this is the problem. Reading from a prepared statement from a white nationalist, right wing, anti-immigration think tank is, you end up repeating this like really stupid shit.
See, if you'd have done your due diligence, you'd not only know what due process is, you'd know how to pronounce caveat.
Well, can I ask you guys what would be, because you do support deportation of criminals, I guess, but not of non-criminals?
I support deportation,
what you consider non-criminals?
Period. I support deportation, period. What I don't support is an end to due process. We explained this to you.
Okay. And how is that feasible with tens of millions of people?
I'm sorry.
What you consider due process?
No, Tim. Tim, it's not what I consider due process. It's not what I consider. It's not what I consider due process. It's what the Constitution defines as due process. I'm so tired of every time. And you are not an honest interlocutor, Tim, and you are not here to learn. Because if you actually gave a shit about any of this, you would have said, wow, I didn't understand due process. I guess I'm not familiar with the 14th Amendment and the history of constitutional law. I guess there is a problem where you at least have to be able to identify the person that you want to detain or deport and show that they've actually done something. You just want an instant solution. You have been conned into thinking, shut up. You have been conned into thinking that we need to get rid of 40 some odd million people or 14 million people or whatever right now, instantly, and we need a magic thing to do it. Well, that's not happening, even by putting Proud Boys in masks and rounding up workers at fucking Home Depot. Do better.
Hello?
Goodbye.
Hello?
Okay, have a good one.
Tim, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Tim, I get it that you want to deport all of the brown people from America.
No,
but you asked Matt
of the United States.
So you would support deporting white people if they were like from Britain?
Yes. Yes, we need to enforce immigration to have a secure country. What if 100 million Chinese people decided to rush the gate? And I don't say that because of race. I say that because there's a lot of people in China.
What if a trillion Canadians came across the border right now?
Canadians don't think they have 30 million people in their whole country.
Wow.
We should deport them too.
So here's the other thing that lets me know that you are absolutely dishonest and nobody should believe you, is that every single time you have an opportunity to say, oh, I hadn't thought of that or I haven't considered that, you ignore it and just do, oh, here's the next invented fictional fucking scenario. What if China decides to invade? What if this happens? What if this happens? We can't solve it instantly. We don't have a way to solve it instantly. What's your solution, smart guy? You are either dumber than Trump, genuinely, which is incredibly difficult to do, or you are sitting here calling in because you think we need callers and you want to stir up some stuff for a good clip. And I guarantee you gave us a good clip. And for that, I'm grateful, because the title of your clip is going to include the word caveat as I yeet you out of this fucking place for being dishonest as fuck.
Well, I don't see what we had people rushing the gates basically under Biden.
Yeah, but okay, so Tim, here's my, so you want a solution for like, deporting the 10 million or providing due process for all of the undocumented immigrants right now. And that is a monumental task, but I think the, allowing undocumented persons to live and work in the United States, in a legal way, is probably the best option, because that allows the courts enough time to process all of the claims for people to be here. It also allows them to work, pay their taxes, and be able to collect on social services. But I mean, they're also paying into the system just as much as any other American does. So like, I feel like that's a better one, the gradual provision of due process, so that we respect our Constitution. But you seem to think that it's very dichotomous, in that it's either all or just nothing. Like either all of the immigrants, at one time, in a very childish sort of understanding of it, all of them at one time have to be provided due process, or none of them should get due process and they should just be kicked out. Would that be an accurate summary of the bullshit you're saying?
Ideally, everyone would get their day in court, but I just don't see how there's any feasible way to give tens of
that doesn't
millions
matter
to people.
That's not what you're not understanding. No, Tim, that's what you're not understanding. Feasibility does not have like is not a factor here, right? Feasibility does not matter when it comes to upholding the Constitution. Do you agree?
I mean, was Abraham Lincoln suspending habeas corpus?
Congratulations. Now Tim's whataboutism has gone all the way back to Abraham Lincoln. Tim, you are the weakest link.
Sure, but you can't say why this is not equitable to that.
Yes, I can.
Equal to that.
It's a violation of the Constitution, and you're saying it's not feasible to follow the Constitution, so let's go ahead and violate it, which means you need to be rounded up next, because you should not get any more due process than you are willing to grant to the people you want to deport. For all I know, you're fucking Canadian.
But you can't. You won't explain how it's feasible, because you don't really care about deporting illegal immigrants.
Tim,
you don't want to do it.
Acknowledged, Tim, we've acknowledged we've acknowledged that feasibility isn't the issue here. You don't get to throw out the Constitution just because something is hard. Just like you don't get to ignore taking one more English class because it was too hard to learn how to fucking pronounce caveat, which is, granted, not originally an English word. You don't get to give up on things just because they're difficult, because when you give up on things when they're difficult, that's how you end up so stupid that you call in and throw out the Constitution, because it's too difficult for you to accept that maybe there isn't an easy solution. Maybe there's a lengthy, complex, long-term, messy solution. But you don't get to throw out people's fucking rights, Tim, not even yours. Despite the fact that I despise what you stand for, I still think that you should have access to due process. And I think everybody who you're willing to deny due process to should also have due process. I'm the one standing on ethical grounds, affording rights to everyone, and you are willing to deny rights to people you don't know, that you cannot prove have done anything wrong. You do not care about due process, which is the only way you can do it, just so that I'm going to bet, well, never mind. It doesn't matter. Just so that you don't have to pay for their health care.
Right. Tim doesn't want to provide, kids with food, and that's kind of sad. But now, Tim, you mentioned Abraham Lincoln, and just for, the audience and probably your edification here. So while Abraham Lincoln did suspend the writ of habeas corpus, it was a highly controversial act that he did it. Many people disagreed with him, and to include the Supreme Court. But the biggest difference between that situation and our current situation is that in Abraham Lincoln's case, the Congress actually did pass the Habeas Corpus Suspension Act in March of 1863. Came 2 years after Lincoln ordered it, which I would disagree with ordering that. Like, I think that the Constitution should be followed, and the correct constitutional process is for Congress to pass, an act or a law of some kind that would effectively do that. I don't think the president should have the unilateral ability to just shit on the Constitution. So that would be one act that Abraham Lincoln did that I would have disagreed with. But I also disagree with Trump right now in basically ignoring the Supreme Court's orders, ignoring the right to due process, and all this other stuff. So I mean, like, I disagree with both. So I wondered, where would you like to take? Oh, go ahead.
I wondered, Tim, are you a member of the Proud Boys?
No.
How do we know that?
You're gonna have to take my word for it.
Well,
I'm not gonna get deported for saying I'm not.
No. Do you think that Proud Boys are currently working as ICE agents and gathering up immigrants?
I have no clue. I don't know that much about that
I know
organization.
You have no clue.
Other than
Tim, we established 32 minutes ago that you have no clue. But if you go and look into it, when you see these individuals dressing up in ICE outfits, do you think masked people who don't identify themselves should be allowed to grab people and take them out of their homes and their places of work and off the street and move them to detaining facilities?
Well, I mean, that's a lot of organizations.
Tim?
That are men with masks.
Do you think masked people who don't identify themselves should be permitted to abduct people and take them to holding facilities? Yes or no?
There are certain other cases that allow for that.
Tim, I'm going to ask you one final time. Yes or no, do you think masked individuals who do not identify themselves should be permitted to abduct people and take them to holding facilities? Yes or no?
Sometimes.
Cool. Then what are you going to do when I put on a mask and come to your home and abduct you?
Well, I would probably fight back because I know there's no reason for that.
No, you wouldn't.
Tim, are you saying that you'd punch an ICE agent in the face? Is that what you're saying right now?
Bullshit.
Tim, that's
I have no reason to be deported.
Oh, that's the same thing for many people who got deported. And you know how we tell? It's called due process, dipshit.
The handful that you will fixate on.
No, I'm not fixating on a fucking handful. I'm fixating on the rights afforded us by the Constitution. The Constitution I swore an oath to defend. Where did you fucking serve? I bet you didn't.
Yeah.
I bet you didn't, did you?
Didn't.
You didn't.
I bet.
See, yeah. I'm the one that took an oath to defend the Constitution, and you're the one shitting on it. Fuck you, Tim. You don't get to shit on the Constitution.
So being a soldier makes you a superior American?
Yes, it makes me superior to you, not because I was in the military, but because I'm willing to defend the Constitution that protects us both. You shit on it, while you shit on it as a matter of convenience, because you are stupid and lazy.
Mm-hmm. Mr. No Wars in the Middle East, because you defended Kuwait, that makes you superior American to me. But I want to defend the borders of the United States where we live.
Tim, I'm going to mute you because you didn't listen. I'm not superior because I served. I'm superior, and I'm superior as an American because I'm defending the Constitution while you are shitting on it. The Constitution that protects you and me and Abrego Garcia and everybody else. I'm defending the Constitution, and you are literally, admittedly, repeatedly uninformed and too dense to acknowledge what the Constitution even says. And instead, you keep going back to, oh, you did this. Oh, what else did this? What about this? What about this? Oh, you're just picking out a handful of what it doesn't matter. The Constitution is the law of the land. It's what gives you your rights. It's what protects you. It's what says that because you were born here, you're a citizen, something they're trying to change. The Constitution's 14th Amendment is what guarantees that police officers can't just arrest you and take you into holding without following due process. It also is what guarantees that masked individuals who may or may not be law enforcement can't swoop in and abduct you. You're sitting there with 23 buckets of white fucking American privilege, confident that you've done nothing to deserve being arrested for, deserve being detained for, deserve being deported for. You are sitting there in your supreme confidence. This can't happen to me because I'm a real American. Well, so am I, motherfucker. So am I. And so are some of the people who are being deported. You know that old adage of it's better for 100 guilty men to go free than one innocent man to go to prison? You're doing the opposite. And you're doing it because you can't see a way to magically wave a wand and fix the immigration problem. It took decades for this to get as broken as it is. It took a decade for you to be misinformed and lied to about the reality to where you are just quoting white supremacist glurge standing there in opposition to immigration. And then you call in to say you're okay with President Trump because he's willing to send masked, unidentified people to scoop people up without due process and deport them to foreign countries, even if they're citizens, because mainly we don't need those day workers at Home Depot because they might also be drug dealers. You are an embarrassment, Tim, an embarrassment to the United States.
Hello? Am I still there?
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah. I wouldn't agree, and I don't think that it's fair for you to sit here and invoke the rule of law. I don't think it's fair for you to invoke the rule of law when you're fine with rioters.
Okay. You don't think it's fair of me to invoke the rule of law when I'm fine with, and the first word out of your mouth before I muted you was rioters. Please show me where I am okay with rioters. This is your one and only chance. Be careful, Tim. Don't start talking yet. This is your only chance before I write down your phone number and ban you. Prove that I'm okay with rioters now.
I would say you can infer that by omission. You're not complaining about it.
Confirm. Oh,
goodbye. You are now banned. You are now banned from my show. You are now banned from my show. You are dishonest as fuck. You accused me of being okay with something that I'm not okay with. And when asked to demonstrate it, you said you can infer it by.
You called for rebellion.
Shut up, Tim. Tim, you're not going to ever. Tim, you don't get to speak to me ever again. I've got your number down. I'm going to be banning you, even though you can still call into other shows in the line. You're done talking on my show forever. Begin. Because you don't get to accuse me of something and then refuse to defend it and think, well, you can just infer that by omission. No, first of all, there is no omission. I have stood up many times in opposition to riots, and not just the January 6th one. I've stood up in opposition to multiple riots. So in much the same way that you don't know the Constitution, you don't know how to pronounce caveat, you don't know what due process is, you don't know what my position is, and yet you are in full-on defensive mode because you have been intellectually pummeled on all the embarrassing things that you are absolutely clueless about as you sit there in your bigotry engaged in whataboutism. I know I would much rather believe that you are a dishonest troll just trying to rile us up than to keep thinking there are people this stupid out there. Unfortunately for you, Trump's got elected by people like you. Whether you're pretending to be one of them or you're actually one of them, I no longer give a fuck. Please go fuck yourself, Tim. You're no longer welcome here. All right. We got more callers, but wow.
Also, real quick before you guys move on, I used Perplexity AI to break down that 150 billion number he brought up. And it turns out the vast majority, and I mean like almost all of it, comes from the U.S. American-born children of immigrants who are entitled to all those programs and would have a Social Security number. So he's attributing to immigrants costs that are incurred by American citizens.
Yeah, which is why they want to get rid of birthright citizenship, because when they start digging in on the actual numbers of what's going on with immigration, it turns out that the supposed cost of this isn't being incurred by the actual any illegal immigrants or people who are here illegally. It is being incurred primarily by the legal children that are here, and that's the anchor babies that they like to call them. It's just embarrassing. But even if Tim was absolutely right about the problem with immigration, and that the absolute best way to fix it is just to round up everybody who's not a legal citizen of the U.S. and deport all of them and kind of hit a reset, you would still have to show who is or isn't a legal citizen. And even if you were willing to do that, you don't get to go throwing out due process. But that's also not the only issue at hand. I'm pretty sure in my opening remarks, I mentioned immigration only because they had a pregnant woman miscarry while begging to be deported to Guatemala, asking to leave. The other things that I talked about are the fact that this dipshit and his parade of unqualified Fox News anchors that he's putting into positions of, and grocery store clerks that he's putting into positions of power and authority, have ripped up deals, disregarded diplomacy, disregarded intelligence, and are now bombed Iran. I don't know exactly where Tim lives, but I'm pretty sure he feels safe there. I wonder if he was actually in the military as I was, and he found himself stationed at, I don't know, an air base in Qatar, if he'd still feel safe. Maybe if he lived in a town that was a prime terror target for terror cells, maybe he wouldn't be so comfortable. Well, I'm opposed to Trump bombing over there, but we really needed to get rid of these immigrants, so I'm just going to be okay with that. I'm lost. It doesn't make sense to me. That's why I don't think he's real.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. Fun fact for me, I back in 2013, I almost got sent to Qatar for some testing. So that was going to be an interesting thing. I had to take a special class and everything like that in order to possibly get sent over there. But I ended up going to UAE. I went to the Al Dhafra base there. But yeah, and but also I think
but the UAE.
Right. I think that call can be pretty much summed up in a very visual representation that I got when Tim said that, you're wanting to do all this, or, your whole argument stems from just a handful of rules, as if he's crumpling up the Constitution in his hand as being like, is this why you want to keep illegal immigrants here? And I feel like that just sums up the entire call, because it just didn't seem like he wanted to,
some of us take the Constitution seriously, such that we keep a copy with us at all fucking times. This is more important than whether or not you have your birth certificate, Tim. Knowing this is more important, and having it ready, understanding it. Some of us have not only read it, we have it. Some of us not only took an oath to defend it, we actually meant it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And you, Tim, are on the borderline of being a domestic enemy of the Constitution. You're still just exercising your rights to be stupid. But at some point, if you continue to advocate for the fascist dismissal of the rule of law, you will become a domestic enemy of the Constitution. God help us when that happens. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that content or think you can do better than the caller, The Hang Up is live Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Central on The Line. Links below.